Hi, and welcome to Plain Corp's InspireHer interview series, where we talk to real people about their finances to debunk the long-held belief that women shouldn't talk about money while improving financial literacy for women everywhere. I'm Sara Gelsheimer. I'm a senior wealth manager at Plain Corp, and I get to work with individuals, couples, and families every day who want professional guidance on how to invest, budget, and plan their financial success. InspireHer is an initiative we started at Plain Corp back in 2016 to build financial literacy among women after years of firsthand experience witnessing the gender divide when it comes to financial management. Our mission is to inspire financial confidence in all women through education and impactful support. By giving women a platform to be curious, inspire, and be inspired, we hope to empower them to be more confident in their financial lives. So welcome to the newest episode of Plain Corp's InspireHer series. Today's guest is Hannah Moore, which I'm so excited about. So Hannah is on a mission to change the way people think about and talk about money. As a financial planner and a number-loving creative, Hannah grew up listening to personal finance radio shows and just feeling like the advice was off. It was like they forgot they were talking to a person, not just a number. In the past decade of her career as a certified financial planner, Hannah has finally seen firsthand the impact financial planning done well can have on clients' lives and how it can truly transform and open a new world of possibilities. Not only has Hannah seen the impact on her clients, she has seen what a meaningful and fulfilling career financial planning can be. She thought for so many years that she had to choose between having a family and a career, but learned through financial planning she didn't have to choose. It is possible to have a life and a career you love. There's even a nursery in the office. Hannah is passionate about training the next generation of financial planners who are also committed to truly helping people through financial planning, not just getting rich off selling ill-fitting products to clients. So Hannah, welcome. I love your bio. So much of it speaks to me. So I'm so excited to get to talk to you today and would love to hear from you. Tell us a little bit more about what you do and how you got into this career.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Sarah. I'm so excited to be here and talking about my favorite topic of how people talk about money. So I'm a financial planner. You know, when I grew up, I grew up with my dad working at Walmart and my mom staying at home with me and my four brothers. And so I realized a year or two ago that I didn't know anybody who needed a college degree to do their job outside of teachers growing up. And so it was a very foreign for me, this idea of a professional job that wasn't kind of just like an hourly type work. And so I went to school because I was good at school. And so I just continued because that's what you do. And so I was going to do nonprofit management and really fell into financial planning. I took this class on a whim, and thankfully, this professor kind of pulled me into this. And so, so grateful for that. But I had no idea, that there's a whole career path out here for me to do this. And so I got started. I had, my first internship. I started working at a wealth management firm here in Dallas, and it was just a whole different world opened up to me. So I remember sitting in on my very first client meeting and that I got to sit in on, and it was a doctor and a banker. It was a married couple, and they were walking through their budget and they were walking through how much money they were spending in all these different places. And I'll never forget, their eating out budget was more than my starting salary budget, my first professional job. And it was so jarring of being like, this is so foreign to everything that I know from growing up. But in that moment when they're talking about this, it was so familiar at the same time. It was so familiar with what I heard growing up, with what I heard about how my parents, what are their dreams for their families. And all of this thing, it was really eye-opening to me of being like, the numbers are different. The packaging is different, but the story is the same. And so it's really started this passion of like, how do people actually relate to money? What does a relationship with money look like? Because I have a theory that it doesn't matter if you have $10,000 or $10 million. What's important is how you relate to your money, because there will always be somebody with more. Like there just will be. Like I worked with people with a lot of money by most people's standards, and they had the same concerns of like, I know I don't have that much. And so anyway, So that's a little bit. So I got started in financial planning that way. I ended up getting a full-time job coming out of school. I started working. I was 22. I started working for a woman who was 68. And so in my first interview, she was like, "Hey, like I'm looking to retire. Would you be interested in buying my practice and being my succession plan?" I literally had no idea what that meant. So fast forward 4 years and I bought her practice and then another small practice. And so I was thrown into being a business owner or being a financial planner, and then also being a business owner at the same time. And so in that process, it was crazy experience. I don't know that I would recommend it for people starting out. But what I really learned, I got to really shape what was this financial planning that I went to school for, that I knew was out there. A lot of the work that we were doing was really focused on just investments, and there's just so much more to people's personal finances in that. And so over the past several years, I've been able to really fine tune, what does that look like for my clients? What does this look like? How can we better serve our clients, right? How can we better serve people as how they understand their money? And so I've obviously still have my small practice that I run, but we're also doing a lot in the new financial planner space for education. With COVID that happened, we saw all these internships getting lost. So we are running a massive internship program now. So we had 940 students who just went through our internship program this summer. So we're really training them on how to do financial planning well, how to actually connect with people and their goals and their money. It is so much more than investments. So that's kind of how I spend my time right now. It's training financial planners on how to do this well, and then also serving my clients as well.
Oh, that is so cool that first of all, it's really funny to me or interesting to me that you kind of landed in financial planning in a similar way that I did. So I was actually a social work major because I wanted to help people. And I took just a basic finance course for my own knowledge because I thought, well, I'm not going to be making much money, but I should know what to do with it when I do make money. And my professor too, he pulled me aside and said, Sarah, you're the top one in our class. You're like beating the finance students and the business students. You're a social work major. Why are you not in financial planning? And I said, well, it's because I don't want to sell anything. He's like, oh my gosh, there's this whole other world, the CFP route. And he really explained that to me. And I'm forever grateful for him, stepping out on a limb and asking me to join this profession because I didn't know it existed. So I think that's probably a fairly common misconception among people in general, but I think women in particular associate finance with sales. And as you know, and I know, we get to actually at the end of the day help people in very big ways. And it's so fulfilling. So it's just really cool to hear your story and how much it aligns with my own personal story.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
The other thing too that you said I think is so great is just how you're really focusing on helping the next generation of advisors do financial planning in the right way. I could not agree more. So I think that's fantastic that you're spending so much time making sure that you're not just, advising your clients in a great way, but you're reaching other people who are going to reach their clients and their clients. What you're doing is making an exponential impact. So that's amazing. So congrats to you for that.
Yes. Well, thank you. And, it's, one of the big, this profession grew out of the sales culture. And so when we look around at the training, I wish it wasn't that way. But I can't go back and change that, and there's, we look at the training that's out there, it's training on the technical knowledge, which is important, right? Like absolutely important. And then it's training on sales. And that's really what's out there. And when we actually look at what financial planners do with their clients, it's like, there's people like you, Sarah, who just intuitively get it and they can work with their clients really, really well from day one. But so many people they just need extra help. And like, what does that training look like? And so we're really setting this pace of what is our expectation for financial planners? Our clients are demanding something that our profession isn't training right now. And so that's really what we're focused on. So hopefully everybody listening to this know that like there are really great financial planners out there. There are people who are just trained in sales. Find a good financial planner. It's worth it.
Amen. So, Hannah, you talked about, it seems like at a very young age and pretty quickly out of the gate, you had to transition from just being, and not say just, but from being a financial planner to now being a financial planner and a business owner. So I'd love to hear what's one of the biggest obstacles that you encountered as a business owner, and how did you overcome it, if you did?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I think one of the things, what's striking me, even just how you asked that, is this idea of, I talk to a lot of planners who are like, oh, you were a succession plan. Like, I want to be that. And it's like, you have to be willing to have really difficult conversations. You have to be willing to make really difficult choices. And so oftentimes I encourage them to like, go have those conversations that they need to be having. And they don't, right? And so it's like, okay, well, it's a sign that you're not ready for it yet. Being a business owner, like you have to be able to have some of that initiative, to go and have those conversations and be able to negotiate the contracts and to be able to, you are like, it's you at that point. And so, I think one of the things, I think probably I was really naive. But in that, I think there was a blessing of just being like, well, why can't I do this? And so we just did it. So it's been really interesting. I know you and I were talking beforehand about being, a wife and a mom, kind of tied in this. My husband works with me now full time. So he does media production. So we do a lot of kind of that side of things as well. But one of the things with being a mom so I've had two little girls. So one is turning 3 this week and the other one is 5 months old. And so I've had 2 maternity leaves. And so one of the things I don't think people appreciate about being a business owner and like how all these things kind of play together is I think that being a mom has made me a better business owner. So I have this quote. It's been a sticky note. It's not a sticky note right now. It used to be on my computer screen that said, "Constraint inspires creativity." And so it's really, being a mom has put constraints on my life, but that's forced me to be creative in ways in which I work. So from a business owner standpoint, one of the things, oh my gosh, any consultant you hear, any podcast you listen to, it's always like, you have to be replaceable. Like if you're not replaceable, you're not promotable, your business will be constrained by you, right? And so I've had 2 maternity leaves where I've had to force myself to get out of my business.
Yeah.
And so what's the irony is that each time I've had a baby, my business has grown. Like those have been my biggest growth years, which is crazy, but it's forced me to think of my business differently. It's forced me to hire people. It's forced me to build processes and things in place that I wouldn't have done if I didn't know that I wasn't going to be in my business. And so it's almost like you have all these things consultants say that you need to do. And I was forced into doing it because I was having a baby.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
I had no choice. Right. And so it's really one of those where, I think people are always like, oh my gosh, like, what are we going to do? And they view it very, I don't say scared to, but there's like this fear and, oh my God, like I had it too. But if you kind of flip that narrative and say, okay, this is really an opportunity for me to set my business up in a way that's going to make it so where it can grow beyond me, where my business doesn't need me. Think if every business owner had to basically force themselves to be out of their business for 3 months, like the businesses would get healthier. Like they would. Yeah. You'd be empowering your people. You'd be doing all these different things. And so I've had my own practice for 8 years now, and I've had 2 opportunities for me to pull completely out of my business. And like, let's be real, my finger was on the pulse of it. Like I was not just checked out.
Absolutely.
But to have that, like that's only made my business better and stronger. And so I don't feel like people talk about that enough of how being a mom actually has helped me in my business that way.
Gosh, that is such great advice. And, I've always heard, if you want to find an efficient worker, go find a mom. Because you're absolutely right. When you are constrained for time, when you have kids, you now have a new priority in your life. You are responsible for raising human beings. It's no light assignment, So, but I think women in general, or people in general, when you are constrained, you have to find ways to get more efficient. So I think that is such great advice. And about, to have 2 maternity leaves force you to be like, look, I've got to get some things in place in my business so that I can feel okay about being out for 12 weeks. So that's pretty cool. I think that's great advice for any other business owner out there, whether they're taking a maternity leave or not, to view it as if you were to need to take a step back from your business, how could you set your business up for success? So that's fantastic advice. So you talk about, obviously you have two young daughters.
Yeah.
I would love to hear from you if you've started, instilling any kind of good money habits in your kids yet. I mean, obviously with an almost 3-year-old being the oldest, I know it's still a little early for that, but would love to hear if you've done anything so far or have any ideas for what you plan to do as they get a little bit older.
It's really interesting. We haven't done a whole lot yet. Probably the most of it, my daughter is like so excited about receipts right now. They're her tickets. And so she just gets thrilled if we're at Target and I give her the ticket. And so so we haven't, had some of those conversations yet. One thing is, I think about this idea of how do we have healthy money conversations, right? How do we do this? And, one of the things I look at is, what are my unhealthy patterns around money, right? Like we all have them, like, let's just be real. And so, for me, it's a lot of scarcity. It's a lot of, I always feel guilty when I spend money on things that bring me joy. I think of, well, we weren't able to have that when I was growing up. So why should I be able to have that now? I buy something and I think of people in my life that I know that are struggling financially. And I'm just like, okay, but like, how can I go do this when I know that money could be it could be used over here? And so I think for me, like what I've been growing in my own relationship with money, if you will, is really kind of saying like, okay, how can I fully have joy with the money that I'm spending, right? Like, how do I fully enjoy this? And so when I think about like, what do I want to start training my daughter on? Yes, we're going to talk about saving and spending and budgeting and giving,
Sure.
Kind of the traditional pieces. But I also want her to embrace this and know that money is not something to be scared of. It's something that allows you to have joy in your life. And so it's not a question of, it's not this, don't spend money. Like, I'm so afraid that like, we're not going to have enough, in retirement or whatever it can be. I hope that I'm able to teach her that money is a tool for us to live well. And that, yes, it is for us to have, we can do nice things. We can have nice things. And we can also give and help people and hopefully help my daughter know that like some of the biggest joy that we can have is giving as well. So I hope to instill some of those lessons with her. We're still kind of figuring out what that looks like,
Sure.
with like the giving, especially like I want her to be part of it. I don't want it to be my husband and I do it kind of in secret. I want
Right.
to incorporate her in whatever that looks like. So I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. But those are some of like the core things that I hope that she learns, that it's more than just saving, spending, and giving, that it's this, again, her relationship with money, as weird as that sounds, I know to a lot of people. But money can be a tool. I don't want her to be afraid of it.
Yeah, no, those again are great words of advice. I think a lot of people view money. I know they say money can't buy happiness, but I always say money can buy a lot of things that can make you happy, though. So, and so having a really good relationship with money is so important. And my last question that I'll ask you later on will relate to that. But a few more questions I have for you before we get to that. But I truly believe everything you're saying with that, making sure you're instilling a good, healthy relationship with money beyond just spending, saving, giving jars. I think that's so incredibly important. And I have my oldest is 3.5, and then I have a 1-year-old, and number 3 on the way. So I am very focused right now on thinking through how am I going to raise really money emotionally happy children. So I think it's an evolution, and I'm sure every child you're going to have to do something a little bit differently because they all learn in different ways. So I always love asking that question. I've gotten lots of good ideas personally that I can use from other people who have been down that road.
Yeah.
So you're obviously married too. So I always love to ask, how do you and your spouse, divvy up the financial tasks in your household?
Oh my goodness! Well, we're still figuring that out. I'm a financial planner. We're still figuring it out. That's I think what's so great is I've worked with a lot of people just like you have, and nobody has the same system, right? So everybody kind of has their own rhythm of how they do it. So I think it's fair to say that I'm definitely the driver in like a lot of the business. So what's unique about us is we run businesses together, and then we have our personal finances. So we have there's multiple layers, which is a whole nother that's a whole nother podcast we could have just on that.
I'm sure.
But so a lot of it is, from the business, I'm definitely I'm the driver. I know our numbers. I know what we're targeting. I kind of know where we are on track on that. And so we'll revisit those together. When it comes to our personal finances, we haven't been as good as budgeting straight up. Here's what we're budgeting for next month. This is where it's going to go. And part of that is because we're in a spot where we have our own business, so we don't have a finite amount of money that's coming in, right? It's not defined. So we just hired somebody. This seems so incredibly frivolous to me. And this is again part of what I'm struggling with of overcoming some of my narratives. I'm so busy with work, and then it was adding all the personal home tasks on top of it. So we just hired an executive assistant for me. To handle all of my emails, to handle all this stuff for work, but also my personal life as well. And so it's so frivolous, but she orders groceries for our family. That's so silly. And I feel but it was just I realized I was spending 2 hours a week doing that. I was spending 2 hours away from my kids, or I put my kids to bed and then go grocery shopping. And I was I don't need to do this. And so and it's quite literally we had just our Kroger click list that she's ordering, and then I can go and edit. It's so simple. But what's unique about our situation is that we're finding that we're spending money on doing an executive assistant, things like that, which is freeing us up, and that's allowing us to make more money. And so we're kind of in this weird, it feels very counterintuitive to me oftentimes that hiring a house cleaner is actually really good, and financially it makes a ton of sense for us. Number one, not even just talking about how it feels good to walk into a clean home, right. But it helps. All of these areas of my life are so interconnected with work and home, and I don't want to be cleaning my home when I get home. And if I had a different job, if I had less stress on my job, if I wasn't the driver, that things would change like that. So how would my husband and I kind of divvy this up? I'm definitely kind of the driver, the big picture. And so we've started one of our big changes that we did because we were struggling with this, and it's fascinating, perception versus reality, right? So we would sit down and talk, and my husband would be we have no money. We have no money. And I'm that's not true. But it's all these stories, all these scripts we have, right, that go in our head. And then it's we have these money scripts, and then we find things that reinforce it. And so then we just stay in that, right? And so I have one of my clients, and she always talks about the importance of being grounded in the reality of where you are. And so one of the really basic things that we started doing about a year and a half ago is every quarter, we sit down and we look at our net worth. So we see quarter over quarter, how is our net worth growing? And so every mortgage payment we pay increases our net worth. And so it really helps us be more grounded in that. So most of our bills are auto pay. I probably know more of that. But we had a conversation this week where my husband was I want to feel more in control. I don't really know. I just feel we're just spending money. I have no sense of where it's going. And I'm well, I kind of have a sense because I go back in and check it. Sure. And so it's very likely that he is about to start, putting us on you need a budget so we can be tracking that going forward. But I'm just I don't have the bandwidth for it. And so sure. We go back and look at how we did spend money. So we look backwards, but we're not, so I don't know that I'm a financial planner, and that's not the best answer, but it's what's working for our family. Yeah. And we know how much we need to be saving for our financial goals. And I know that we're doing that. And so I've just learned that there's so much freedom around money that yes, we want to be on a budget and have all these things, and we will, right? And we are we generally know how much money we want to spend every month. We know those numbers. We know how much money we do spend. We know if we're over or under in a month. But I don't have the energy to be on this rigid budget. Looking forward, we're not trying to pinch our pennies because I don't have the capacity for that. Now, our life could very well change in a couple of years. A couple of years ago, I did. And so that's what we did. We were on a very, we knew exactly how much money we had. We were syncing up, talking about it on a regular basis, but it's just with our lives, it's just gotten more complicated. And I think that's okay. I think that's really healthy, actually. So if you're listening to this, I don't know, maybe Sarah, I shouldn't say this, but I'm a financial planner, and I am doing the best that we can right now. And it's okay.
Yeah. No, I love that. I often ask this question, who divvies up? How do you divvy up these financial tasks? And I always encourage whichever the non-primary spouse whoever that is, make sure that they at least know how to do all these different things, like where money is located, how they could take over if something happened to the one who takes care of most of those tasks. And it's shameful for me to admit, but I, of course, handle a lot of this for our family. And I have not done all the things that I encourage my clients to do to making sure he knows where to find all this stuff. And we, of course, talk about it, but, so all I'm saying in that is that sometimes even those of us who are professionals in this, we're really good at giving advice, but sometimes it's okay to admit that we don't have a perfect system in place in our own personal lives. And you know what? That's okay. If it's working for you guys, I mean, as long as you're spending within your means. I am never a huge fan of having an outline budget that you feel very constricted by. I even think the reverse budgeting is almost a better tool, where as long as you're hitting your savings goals, it doesn't matter at the end of the day what you're spending the money on. Don't get so tied up in whether it goes to groceries versus eating out. I mean, as long as you're hitting your savings goals, don't beat yourself up or feel like you have to watch where every other penny goes. Some people have to have that strategy, but for a lot of people, the best way to a successful budget is finding the one that works for them,
Well, and I think so much of it is listening to ourselves and what do we need, right? So like there have been points in my life where I needed very practically to know where all the money was going, because if I didn't, I wasn't going to have enough for my car payment. Like that was just the reality of my situation. And so like even just with my husband and I, like, so about a year and a half ago, we had the need of we needed to intentionally be checking base, not just on our monthly spending, but our overall picture. And so we started that. And then again, this past week, Charlie, my husband, was saying, he needs to know more about what's happening in this. And so I think it's okay. I think what I would want to make sure people know is that there are ways. This is something not to avoid. It's something to recognize, I want to have a better sense. And doing that not out of guilt or shame. It's something that I want to do, and to not be afraid of it. Just to be oh, okay, cool. Right now, I want to know more of where my money is going, and that's okay. And so we're going to build up a system for that. And so I think that's just kind of a healthier way to kind of approach that.
Yeah, for sure. So I know one thing that I've talked about previously on here is just that, everybody hears about the wage gap, right? That women on average earn about 80 cents on the dollar for every dollar a man makes. But what I don't think is often talked about is the investing gap, and even the wealth gap that exists between males and females. So I'm curious to get your take on that, if you've seen that firsthand, if you have any thoughts about that, and really just, do you have any words of advice for women to help close those gaps?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the wage gap, as a business owner, I'm don't discount your fees. No, negotiate. All of those pieces, talk about money. But specifically the investment gap, there's so much irony of I talk to women on a regular basis, and they come in and they're just I don't know what to do. And I'm just overwhelmed by this. And I think one thing is that as women, we're not afraid to admit that we don't know. We're just I need help. I don't know. And so what the irony is, all the studies show that women investors are actually get a higher rate of returns than men do. It's just this, the irony is women tend to be better investors, and yet we're so afraid of it. And so I think a lot of that is diving down into the security of money, what that means. I'll tell you, having two little girls now, I mean, my God, in the pandemic, I was listening to people talking about food insecurity. I quite literally couldn't think about it. It was the response was just so different. And I know my husband has that too, but there is something in me about security, of being that mothering instinct that is there, of knowing that I don't want to say I'm the last line of defense for my family, but feeling that. And so I understand that security. I think that's also kind of just there. That's just a higher priority oftentimes. And so I think it's just getting, a lot of the good financial planning of what we say, number one, what does security mean? What does that look like for you? I know Charlie, my husband, and I have conversations like this all the time. Okay, security is big for both of us. What does that mean? What does that actually dollars and cents mean? I need to have and again, it varies so widely. And I know, Sarah, you've seen this too with your clients. It can be, I need $5,000 in the bank. I have a client, it's $95,000 in the bank, like cash. I have other clients who I need $1,000 in cash in my freezer. Like,
Yeah.
okay. I have other clients who are like, I want to pay it off home. I don't know what that is. Everybody has it differently. But I think it's figuring out what is that security element. And it's like, if we can figure out what that is, then we can start saying, then we stop playing defense, right? And then we can say, okay, now what's possible? Like, what could we do with our money? And those are the conversations that get me really excited. What could we do? What could be made possible by investing? And I wish, especially as women, that we had these conversations more of what could actually be possible with money. Because I think the more conversations we have on that, it's not going to be this like dreaded, oh, I don't understand it. It's going to be like, I want to understand this because, oh my gosh, if this world is possible for me, like I want that, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to do what it takes to do that. But again, I think it's kind of shifting that mindset from not being, it's an education. It's we're not. I have a lot of. So this is very anecdotal. I don't have a study that says this, but I have a lot of friends whose husbands are like on Robinhood. And they're just like, oh, I can start investing in this app, and I'm just going for it. And like my friends are just like, oh my gosh, Hannah, like what is this? Like I don't know if I understand this. I don't know. And just seeing the natural inclination of that, I think is showing just some inherent differences. But yeah, don't be scared of it, and know that this will open up a whole world of possibilities.
Love that. Yes, I couldn't agree more. So my last question for you, which I alluded to earlier, I feel like it's a question I ask everyone that I interview because I think it can be so telling, especially with regard to how people view money or their relationship with money. So I would love to know, what is your first money memory?
Yes, so I would say there was this little store it was called Bargain Mart, quite literally called Bargain Mart, in my hometown, where it was like where they would sell all of the dented cans, all of the like leftovers from the grocery store. They would go there, but you got like a really, really great deal. And so I remember just saving up, like literally going there with a quarter and being so excited. I mean, like even like Gushers, like, you're not supposed to sell them in individual packs. No, they sold them in individual packs. Like, so you could like 5 cents for like a pack of Gushers or something, but it just being so, so excited to go, with just like quite literally like the pennies and nickels and dimes that we had. We would ride our bike there, and it was like such a big deal that we got to go to Bargain Mart and get like just these little candies that they have there.
Oh, that's so fun. So thank you so much for joining us. Is there any last words of wisdom that you would give, any of our viewers here before I let you go?
Yeah, so I would just say, I talk about this with new financial planners. This is certainly my passion, is the power of financial planning. Like, it is so overwhelming to think about going, and it just is overwhelming thinking about getting all of your finances in order, all of it aligned with your life. And there's just so many like caveats. That's what I always have in my own life. It's like, but this, but this, but this. But let me tell you, with the impact of having a great financial planner, like it is one of the most powerful things you can do in your life. It really helps align everything you have towards a common goal. It helps you know what's possible. I'll tell you just the level of stress that it took for me and my husband when we were able to say this number is how much we have to save every month so that I know that we never have to worry about money again. Like the level of just anxiety and stress that took off of us. I mean, I'm not worried about how much we're spending on childcare right now because I know we're saving this money. Just like there's so much power in financial planning and having those numbers. I would just really encourage you, like if you haven't found that, or if you're working with somebody and you're just like, you're saying all this, I just don't experience this. Go find another financial planner. Go talk to Sarah, go talk to somebody, because there's people out there, and I will tell you, I've experienced it firsthand. I see it every day. The power of financial planning, like it has the power to transform lives. And if you aren't experiencing that, if money is stressing you out, there is another way. And I just encourage you to keep going, keep searching, because there is a way for you to operate around your money that is not fear. It's not anxiety. It can bring you joy. It can be fulfilling. It can really enhance your life. And so if you haven't found somebody to work with on that, like keep searching. Like, we're out here. Sarah's here. There's a lot of other people out here. And so yeah, I'm just so sold on the power of financial planning. Every time I hear somebody, a friend or anybody, it's like they're starting it. I'm like, yes, like you don't even know what's in store for you. I'm so excited.
You're about to unleash so much potential, right?
Yeah. And just the peace and like the lack of anxiety, like it's just that alone is so valuable.
Yeah. Thanks, Hannah. Yeah, I'd say the most common phrase that I hear from clients is, wow, thank you. I have such peace of mind now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like peace of mind is one of the most important things that we can provide to clients.
So I run this internship program for financial planners. And so I started recording client meetings. So that they could see what financial planning is, right? That's what everybody wants to say, like, what is this? And so it's really fun because I get to go back and I was providing commentary, I was rewatching this, but I was hearing the comments that these students were having around this couple who they're early 60s, by so many measures, they're behind on the retirement savings, so like all these different things. Like they're not in an easy spot, right? But they came in and they did these meetings and we recorded them. And one of the comments that multiple students have made to me was they're like, you could tell, like even just physically how they were showing up and how they were talking from the first meeting to the last meeting. They came in, and I didn't think the clients were like super high anxiety or stress or anything like that, but they were just like how they talked, how they were just talking about their money. Like it fundamentally shifted over those meetings. And so there is something about working with a financial planner, about talking about your money. I know it's uncomfortable. It can be uncomfortable, but the level of comfort and it was just, again, all these students were telling me like you could just hear the difference in their voice of working with a financial planner, from the beginning to the end of the arrangement. And looking back, they're right. It is. And it's like, those are the hard things to quantify, about what does it mean to be with a financial planner. And so it's a scary first step, to start working with a planner, or to say that y'all, so many of my clients right now, like they're coming because they're like, who I'm working with, like, I don't want to be doing that anymore. So finding like a really good person that you can come in and just talk to about your money, like it does change things. It just does. And so that I just wish. I'm all about training good financial planners, because I know the impact that we can have on people's lives and families and generations of families, in our communities if we do this well. So
for sure. Yeah, that's what gets me motivated. That's what gets me up in the morning to do this job, because it's so fulfilling. So you hit the nail on the head. Hannah, I cannot thank you enough for joining us. You've had such great words of wisdom all throughout this. I really am excited to share this out. And certainly want to thank you again for being a part of this. And we'll provide ways to get in touch with Hannah as well after this. Thanks, Hannah.
thank you, Sarah.